Strain Podcast, a Southgate Media Group production, where we talk all about Guillermo del Toro's horror fantasy series, The Strain. We are currently covering the series' third season on FX. I'm your host, Blaire Knight Graves, the executive producer and host of Professional Geek Podcast, and with me today is Kyle Tremblay, the editor-in-chief at TVBinges.com. You can find us on Twitter at Blaire Loves TV and at Kyle Loves TV. You can follow this podcast Twitter handle at The Strain Pod. Don't forget to play the Strain Bingo with us every week for a chance to be on our show. Hi Kyle, how are you doing today?
Hi, this is totally Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see anything wrong with that introduction.
Yes, I am Kyle and you are Blaire.
Blaire, why am I reading the introduction? I'm confused.
You're reading the introduction because I have been infected by the master and I have something growing in my throat.
You sound like you're like 1/3 of the way into having a stinger.
That's pretty much what's happening. It's developed in my throat. So I apologize to our listeners if you have to turn this episode off because I sound so bad. I totally understand. Yes. I'm drinking tea and trying to be better. But we still needed to talk about the strain, so I'm still here.
I forgot to introduce I'm Kyle with an E and you're Blaire with an E.
I know. I always ad-lib that part.
I have to do all the classic bits.
I know. I have this scripted out every week and I've got it down pat and now I'm forcing you to do it. What is this?
This is a disaster. It's already gone bad. So anyway, today we are talking about Season 3, Episode 6, The Battle for Central Park, which was written by the writing duo Bradley Thompson and David Weddle, two people I don't know. But first, we gotta talk about Blaire. The Strain has been renewed for a 4th and final season. Your thoughts?
What? Oh, thank God.
My exact 2 words that came to mind when I heard this.
Like, thank God that FX was like, all right, we know that you guys aren't prepared to end your show, so because you've got such good names behind you, we're gonna, like, give you the opportunity to finish your story, but like y'all mess this up so bad.
We're gonna extend to you a favor.
Right, exactly.
But no, it's like, honestly, it's the absolute best thing that could have happened to this show. Because clearly season 3 isn't going anywhere too fast. so we're not gonna wrap anything up at the end of this season. I think it's safe to say. But getting a set end date. And one that is only, I assume, 10 episodes away once the season ends. I assume it'll be a 10-episode 4th season. Did they announce that? How many episodes?
I didn't see it. They might have announced it, but I didn't see it.
Okay, well, I'm thinking it's going to be like 10 episodes. And in that case, it's like, all right, guys, get moving. Like, we got to wrap this whole world, this whole universe up in one season. And obviously, they aren't like producing season 3 anymore. Like, it's already done, I assume.
Right, I'm sure they saw it and they were like, guys, what did you do?
Yeah. Like, okay, guys, you need this. Because, yeah, it's bad.
But it is fair to say that when the show was brought to FX, they signed an agreement that it would be between 3 and 5 seasons. that was 5 that I said. 3 and 5 seasons, no more, no less. So 4 is right in the middle between those two.
It's right in the middle, and if you had told me the show would be 4 seasons when the show began, I would have said, yeah, that sounds about right. The pace that the show has been on from a big picture storytelling perspective is to end at about season 27. So it's good. It's like good to just get it out there that, hey, this has an end date, because what could have happened is what's happening with The Walking Dead, which is just like you sort of cycle through various villains and characters and nothing ever happens, and you just sort of spend each season running in a nice little circle, and you start the next season where you began the previous circle, and you just do that for 10 straight seasons. So it's like, okay, well, now it's gonna end. So whatever arrows they have in their quiver that they've been saving, now's the time to fire them when season 4 kicks off.
Yeah, and it definitely makes sense from a perspective if you know the books at all, because in book 3, like, so book 3 is titled The Fall, and the last episode of the season is titled The Fall. So very clearly, they know that they want to get to the end. So who knows if it was like a mutual decision or if it was FX like forcing them to stop. But like they are seemingly moving on from book 2 to book 3, which is a very different beast from book 2. And right now we're sort of in the pseudo book 2.
We aren't in book 2 right now, but we aren't in book 3. We are in some kind of uncanny valley between books. We are in a theoretical space right now. We are in a Schrodinger's box where this what we're watching right now would not exist if we weren't looking at it. Like there's some weird storytelling stuff going on. So let's get into it for this episode.
Yeah. Oh my God. So many things happened.
Yeah. What did you think of this one? Like you're normally the one who brings topics to me. What did you think?
I've got topics ready. Just prepare for my voice to crack.
No, good. Yeah, transitioning.
So I thought this episode was a big old dumpster fire, but but like it was exciting and there were good elements. There were good elements. Like it did all of like the fun stuff that the strain does and can do. But like from a narrative perspective, it was a big old dumpster fire.
It was a raging inferno that started at a dump. It was but I liked it. I like this episode.
I thought you would. Even with Zach and his pet Strigoi.
I didn't like that. I have to tell you, I did not like that.
Him playing fetch with a feeler, that's horrible. It's so scary. And like just like on so many levels of thinking of an 11-year-old boy playing fetch with his pet vampire in a world where he's been taught to be afraid of these creatures is just like how did we get here? Like, I don't even know. I can't even describe the steps that got there.
I wouldn't describe it as scary. Like, I wasn't scared of it. I was more in disbelief. Is this gonna be Zach's first on-screen friend? Like, is this the only being in the universe who can tolerate Zach? Like that was my only thought during that interminably long scene.
Yeah, no, it was horrible, and like that he ended up like petting it and snuggling it, and it was purring. Like what is the strain doing?
What book was? Can you point me? Can you give me a citation of this strain? What book are we in?
I have no idea. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like. Yeah, that was here's the thing. Here's the rub. Most of this episode was devoted to two like raid style scenes where Gus and Fett were leading teams and like exploring tunnels. And if you give me that, I'm gonna enjoy the episode. like it's the one kind of scene that from the get-go the strain has done well. That sort of infiltration scene with vampires everywhere, and you know it's just like that kind of scene almost always works on this show, and we got a heaping helping of that in this episode, and that made a big portion of this episode a lot of fun.
It did. I mean, I continue to have issues with the whole Gus storyline, and
we're gonna get into Gus.
Yeah, I know. Like, I can understand why everybody is really excited that the cops were killed, and like I agree that those cops were pretty bad, but we also, and you know, this has been becoming more and more affirmed for me, but like we can't forget that like Gus willingly and intentionally killed innocent people.
No, I've been harping on that for a while now, and it is the strain did exactly what I feared from the get-go that they would do. Feared from the moment that Gus used his mother as a murder weapon, which is they didn't write that into the character. Like, that moment was every bit the throwaway moment that we thought it was at the time.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't like... I was hoping that was kind of like a landmark. And it's the same with Feraldo, by the way. Like, Feraldo suppressing that journalist, I don't think that was her descent into arch-villainhood as defined by the show. I think the show was just using that as like a cool moment and then moving on based on the evidence of this episode. Like, I think Gus murdering two cops with his mother was just like, the show was like, yeah, cool, let's go. Right. Because Gus, at this point now, is the same person he's been in every other season. Even though 3 episodes ago, he was like a crippled shut-in who only could take care of his vampire mother. And then suddenly, like, he's back to being normal?
The strains still, we've complained about this a lot, that just like the overarching plot lines that like matter from episode to episode and connect, there's no connective tissue. It's just whatever episode we're in is the characters we're getting. It's going to be an iteration of the character that we know, but it's not going to be consistent with the last iteration that we met.
I mean,
like all of the writers have their own version of what these stories are and have no communication with one another.
Exactly. It's like a party game where you each write 1/10 of a story and you put them in a hat and then you pull them out one by one and try to make it into a coherent story.
That's exactly what it is.
That's a strange season because we are on Dutch Velder's 8.0 right now.
Oh yeah, Dutch Velder's confronting her would-be rapist and like just slicing his hand off and like not freaking out.
By the way, the only time in the history of this show that I can remember that a non-lethal wound has been inflicted on a Strigoi. Of course, she just cuts off his hand. Way to use your surprise attack.
Right.
Like every other Strigoi, 100% headshot, except when it's F shooting. Then it's like a 10% headshot. But it's like, chopping off heads and everything. But no, it's Iker's. Dutch has a clear shot at him, chops off his hand.
Yeah.
Like his hand?
Yeah. Well, it'll be a cool little thing for Ikers to walk around with only one hand.
I love it. I mean, I love the idea of deforming that character and like, putting some skin in the game. That's good. I mean, it made me gasp to see Iker's hand fall off. That was kind of shocking. But
that's good.
It wasn't bad. It's just kind of silly. And it's like Dutch becoming Nora, like literally becoming Nora these last few episodes has been quite the transformation.
Yeah, she's back. She's right there. She's exactly where Nora was. Like,
exactly. She is F's assistant.
Yeah, and she uses this. I think she uses basically the same sword that Nora did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's using the sword.
Yeah, it's so bad.
She's just really, it's like I hate to reference The Walking Dead twice earlier in this podcast, but it's like when The Walking Dead killed off its black character and then replaced him with another black character the same episode.
Haven't they done that like 2 or 3 times?
Yeah, in the first 2 seasons, they did it 3 times.
That's insane.
Like, that's what we're dealing with here. It's like when the strain kills off a female character, another female character needs to directly take her place because they have just no idea how to write those characters or fit them into the story.
Well, okay, so speaking of, so we're just so we wrap up with Gus, like him having a random female new inmate that he feels like he has to protect.
Oh,
I find it, I mean, I understand why for simplistic storytelling reasons, but I find it appalling that of the 5 inmates or the chain gang members who went in and 3 of which were new except for Gus and Angel, and one of those 3 new ones was a female, that Gus was like, oh, I must protect her. There's 2 other people right there who have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. And you're just going to dote exclusively on the female because she's attractive. And I understand and I get it. They're trying to give him another love interest because the show does not understand how to have a woman in the show without it being a love interest character.
They shipped off his last love interest at the end of last season, right? The restaurant girl, the waitress girl.
They sent her away from New York.
They just sent her away.
And then they bring on this new girl, and the other 2 guys die, and nobody cares. But hey, this new girl, whose name I can't even remember, she's cool. So
Maria.
They say Maria. Yeah, Angel walked her out. Like, I don't get it.
Speaking of cool new girls, Fet's also got a love interest.
Kate's
Kate,
back.
As predicted, we knew that she wasn't just going to be on screen for 20 seconds to have a sex scene.
Right, and and I called it that she was military because of the wristband she was wearing.
Yep, so now she is back, and she's playing Lone Survivor with Fet, as their crew is very quickly dispatched of, but of course they survive.
Yeah, causing jealousy issues with Dutch all over the place.
Not gonna believe it, but yes. Yep. Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, I guess Feraldo's the only woman on the show who sort of doesn't, like, get actively engaged in a love story, right?
Yeah.
And of course she is, like, teetering on the brink of becoming a dictator. So that's great. Yeah.
They don't have a really good view of women in the show. We've talked about that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's well-trodden ground, but it's just important to bring up from time to time.
Just to remind everybody, hey, in case you were wondering, it's still bad.
Still, strained women's status, still not great. Still not great. 33 episodes and counting.
Yeah, still not great.
Still not great.
So let's talk about Dutch and F a little bit because their technology got a lot better in a really short period of time.
They have accessed some kind of hidden underground bunker of technology.
Yeah, I think it was Mike Cancelero, who was on one of our first episodes of this season as a Strain Bingo winner, tweeted at me that they must have raided a Radio Shack, and I thought that was pretty great.
That's about right.
Yeah.
But no, they are like officially working with Feraldo now, aren't they? Like they have some kind of official relationship.
Yeah, I mean they've had one since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, so I guess she could have off-screen furnished them with gear.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing in their interaction in the previous episode that indicated that happened, but I'm sort
not
of
at all.
trying to piece it together.
Nope, they just had it. They found it somewhere. Yep.
They have a whole mobile setup now.
Yep, no scavenging mission or anything. They just suddenly have a way of understanding how they all speak to one another.
Yep.
Like, they were figuring that out in the last episode. How do they know how to do it now?
They got it. They got it. Yeah, the story of what happens, like, off camera on the Strain would be fascinating. Like, if we really went through and cataloged all the sort of plot movement that occurs when we aren't watching the show, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, a lot does happen.
Just a lot happens.
Like, Fett's little beard thing got so much bigger over time. Like, what is that? What is that process? Is he in the bathroom just, like, meticulously shaving?
We've never seen him sculpting
No.
that beard.
Oh, I want to see that. But yeah, but what was really cool about the F and Dutch scene was that when the master spoke to them and that they could like hear that interference, that was like when the Strain does stuff in a clever way.
Yeah.
Like it really gets me because I'm like, oh, look at all this potential you're wasting.
It's still a show that has a lot of good ideas, and like that's what I was saying. Like with the sort of raid scenes. It's like when they're in the tunnels and you stop caring about the story really because there's like imminent danger, even though we kind of knew that none of our main characters were going to die. It's, you know, like that's when the Strain's good. And I'd be very interested in a show that was like heavily focused on that. You know, like on the sort of action element of all of this. And maybe treated the other elements as secondary.
Yeah.
But was really just sort of about fighting this on the ground. That would be a very interesting kind of show.
Well, I think that's what they're trying to go for, but they just have a bad concept.
No,
you don't think so?
No. That's not. That was, they sort of, I mean, who knows what they're trying to go for, but they sort of slingshot between a variety of ideas, you know. And having different kinds of episodes isn't a bad thing necessarily, but there are a lot of episodes of this show where there's a lot of talking. I mean, you know, a few episodes back, we got that big, like, mythology episode where we were back in, like, 1st century Rome or whatever, like, you know, so the Strain has a lot of ideas. Some of them were good.
If they go with book 3, I, like, had sudden flashbacks to what book 3 is about, and book 3 is fine. It's my least favorite of the books because it's just very different. If they go the whole route, like, get prepared for all types of weird fantasy flashbacks. It's gonna be a wild ride.
Yeah, I don't mind that though. Like there's a thing like the Strain, I like it when it's very pragmatic and like physical, like for lack of a better term, like they're fighting the Strigoi. They're chopping off heads. They're planning, you know, like sort of the Feraldo stuff. You know, she's planning defenses and all that. And like, if the Strain's going to be a very sort of pragmatic show that matches with the first 2 books, and that's fine. If the Strain wants to just go off its rocker and be like a crazy fantasy show with all kinds of weird stuff, that's also fine. It's when they sort of hit this, like, this point where it's like a family drama, like in the first season when all the like divorce material, the relationship material between F and Kelly, like all of that stuff, when the focus really shifts to that, is when the show really gets in trouble. Like, it's definitely not a family drama.
Like with F being able to find the lair where Zach is being kept in
right?
5 seconds.
That, like, we're talking about skipping over material, like, we had a whole episode that showed Fett's, like, journey through this, and apparently his, like, foray along with Kate and the now dead crew, like, what time of day did they start that at? Because they left at night. So did they start at 5 in the morning like Gus's raid, and it took like 13 hours to get through?
Yeah, it was nightfall by the time they got to the...
That's absurd. Yeah. It couldn't take 13 hours. like that's like, how many miles could you travel in those conditions? Like
that's what Feraldo was saying though. Like Central Park isn't that big.
Yeah, right.
Like I don't think you could get lost for 13 hours. I mean, I understand they're underneath and
but Fett had already mapped the way.
Yeah.
Like he already knew the way. Like I don't know how deep down it goes underground, but 2 hours maybe max. Like it doesn't. It's not a large. Like 13 hours is like. It's a lot of miles of walking.
Well, even give them the benefit of the doubt. Like when it's wintertime, it's like 9 hours or something. But like, still.
It's just a lot of time. All they had to do is find a place that Fett already knew the way to, and activate an explosive device. Like they weren't exploring. You know, they were traveling a known path, and yeah, they ran into some resistance. But like the time, like it doesn't make any sense to me how it became night during that. Like what took all the time,
and how F got there in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well,
after it took.
Yeah, Fett. The world's least helpful radio call gives F some like vague guidance, like, "Hey, you better get down here, bro." Like you don't want to just tell him like everything that's happening. No, okay. And then F shows up and is immediately in the exact right place. I mean, I just don't get it. Like I don't get why we skip over those intermediate steps.
Because it's what's convenient for the show's storytelling, not what actually makes sense.
There were so many scenes in this episode that could have been cut. Could have been edited out to give us a more full feeling of that whole dynamic, but no.
But we did get to see Fett literally pull the stinger out of a Strigoi, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
that was worth it.
Fett is still in full-on Nicolas Cage mode, in case you were wondering, and he's doing like trick shots now. Like it's not enough just to kill the Strigoi. Now he like grabs their stingers and pulls it out of their mouths. Like he's really exploring the studio space when it comes to Strigoi murder.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that like Fett is kind of now the main character of the show. Like they did a good job of sort of slowly making it happen, but as far as I'm concerned, by the time we got to this episode, he's our protagonist. Well, like it's not F anymore.
Yes, but they've done one of the things that we've been asking for since we started the podcast, which is they more clearly defined those two characters in particular as far as what their role is. Is that F is the science guy, he should be working on a scientific solution. Fett is the action guy, he should be doing the raids. It's like, well, this season they've got that straight now. For the first time, they've got it to where that F is actually doing stuff that you would expect him to be doing, and Fett is doing stuff that you'd expect him to be doing, and I think that aspect works really nicely, actually.
No, I do too, but it's also one of those things where it's really hard to take F seriously when he's just in the background monitoring sounds.
Yeah, no, but that's good. That to me is fitting for the character and kind of something the show never committed to enough. Which is that F isn't a great dude, and he's not a great guy to be around, and he's not a hero. And the show's they've had him do bad things since, like, the start, and they've never been especially, like, sympathetic towards him, but they've also never really driven that home to where you feel like, yeah, F, you're, like, the nerdy science guy that no one really likes. You know, like, that's who he is. He's a guy that no one really likes, and I think we're kind of getting that, where it's just he and Dutch sort of latched on now because she had nothing else to do. So he's starting to feel to me like a real character instead of sort of just a part that Corey Stoll is playing.
Right, exactly. No, I totally agree with that. I'm on board. Okay, what haven't we covered? Oh, so I'm starting to like back off on my belief that Feraldo is a supervillain.
Well, it's our old it's Coco all over again. Yeah. Where we read something into a scene because we are active television watchers who have watched a lot of television and tend to understand these things. But then we forgot that the strain is its own beast. And
it does not play by traditional television rules.
And that when the strain telegraphs something, it's like it's like a butt dial. Like it's telegraphing something, but it just sat on the keyboard. Like it didn't mean to telegraph it. It's just kind of what happened. You know.
Oh,
like,
I love that.
It's not the strain puts these ideas, and you're like, I'm piecing these ideas together, the strain, and then the strain hits your hand with a ruler and is like, no, don't you dare put those ideas together. We didn't mean to put those ideas out there.
We have no idea what we're doing.
We have no idea. Like we're just throwing stuff at the wall here.
That's exactly.
We gotta fill 44-minute episodes, guys. We need to just throw scenes here. Who cares, you know?
Yeah, I'm so bummed. I'm also really bummed that Fett learned about the chain gangs and had absolutely zero reaction.
No, Fett was fine with it.
He was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, Feraldo put you in a chain gang.
Yeah, no, that checks out.
Yeah, you're my friend, and I don't care about that.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you help me out here, I'll get you out. Great, Fett, way to perpetuate that.
Right.
You literally made the same offer to him that the crooked police officer did.
Literally. Oh my god. I was like, really? Fett? Come on. Come on.
Fett is not like the most like Fett's the coolest character, but he's also not this like bastion of morality. You know, he's sort of, I mean, the way he's talking now, he's just speaking in one-liners, and he's just sort of coming up with ways to say "boom" in different contexts. Like Fett isn't where you turn for like a nuanced perspective on social issues. So I kind of get it. I think Fett has a one-track mind at this point, and that track involves setting off bombs in giant Strigoi piles.
Right. And then finding a woman who does something really cool with her life to sleep with.
Yes. Well, I mean, that just happens so fast. Like, that, yeah.
Yeah. That is what he does. He sets off bombs and finds women who do really cool things.
Nicholas Fett. He is a Nicolas Cage Fett movie. It's all happening.
Oh, man. Did we get everything?
Gosh. I mean, what we're saying, to expand on Feraldo. It's that, like, this episode, she was portrayed so sympathetically. You know, there was no hint at all of her being villainous. At all, you know, just at all. It was just not present. Like, she was just someone who was doing her best to save the city. Yeah. I didn't see any kind of indication from the show that they were leading us down any path, which is different than the last two episodes where both you and I got a strong sense that that's the path we were headed down. So yeah, I don't know what to think about her. I also don't know what to think about the whole reveal at the end regarding the central, like, okay. This is one of the struggles that I constantly have with this train, which is I understand the stakes in a large big picture perspective. Like, I understand, like, okay, so obviously the world's at stake. Got it. I understand, like, if they kill the master, their whole takeover is done. Or if they put him in a lead coffin. I still don't know what would happen if they just stepped on him, but we'll table that. If the master is incapacitated, this whole thing is going to be either go away or easy to stop. A lot of times with the strain, I don't understand the significance of the sort of the checkpoint events like this. Like, okay, so they wanna take back Central Park, and they're gonna do it by blowing up this whole nest of Strigoi that Fett uncovered. And so they do that, and they're successful. And then thousands of Strigoi that same night pour into Central Park. And apparently there was something about this being a diversion.
Yeah, like he sacrificed a couple thousand so that, but like what Feraldo said is like, oh, they got us out while we're at night, and I'm like,
what, are they not out? Like, what is their normal nighttime protocol?
Right, and like, who is out besides the people you have inside your tunnel? Like, you never answered that question.
This is a two-man mission at this point. A one-man and one-woman mission. Why is anyone out?
Yeah.
Why? It didn't track to me, and maybe there was some dialogue at the beginning of this episode when it was really boring that I just missed. But it didn't track to me what the trick that Eichhorst pulled was. Like, what the military maneuver. And also, I don't have any sense of how many Strigoi there are. And so it seems like, yeah, killing that big tub of them, like the big nest of them, seemed like a good thing. But then, like, there's just thousands more. It's like, I just don't understand the stakes of any of this. I don't understand, like, why they need to take back Central Park. Seems like all they need to do is find and kill the Master. I just don't, like, none of that really tracks for me. And I don't know if I just haven't paid close enough attention. I just never understand, like, okay, like, the Battle for Red Hook is another example of this. Where it's like, okay, cool battle. I don't understand what the stakes of this battle are. I don't understand what the side, like, what the numbers are. I don't understand what'll happen if they win versus if they lose. Like, none of this, like, really tracks with me. Like, I'm not quite getting how this factors into the big story.
But, you know? Kyle, they had a big projection of Central Park being covered by red dots, which were the Strigoi.
Yeah,
like they
did.
Like, how did that not tell you everything you need to know? Like, and how are they tracking them? That's what I want to know.
I don't have any sense of the geography of New York at the moment, as in, like, okay, what sectors of New York have Strigoi in them? How many are there? What's their idea of like, the Strigoi population currently? How many do they kill each night? How many men do they, like, I would need to understand all of that for this story to feel meaningful to me. Yeah. And I feel like most shows would get me there. Like, I don't think it would take, like, an incredible amount of dialogue to help me understand, like, what the stakes are of this particular thing.
Most shows would have a situation room where the camera spins around the center and everybody goes like, all right, we've got our men here, here, and here. Like, right? Like they do in Game of Thrones. Yeah. Like they do, like in Game of Thrones, they have no idea where each other are because they're in a fantasy world without technology. And we're here with maps that you can touch and they do things, and nobody gives us the situation room breakdown.
Here's one thing I never wondered during the Battle of Blackwater. Why does this matter? That's a thought I never had for 1 second, as Tyrion Lannister was being a freaking hero and making me cry. I never thought for 1 second, hey, why are you doing this, Tyrion? What you doing, bro? Like, yeah, competent shows build those reasons into the dialogue. Like, they build all of that stuff in so that big scenes like this feel meaningful. And The Strange it doesn't. It just doesn't. It's like, yeah, Battle of Red Hook, go. It's like, right. Yeah, Central Park's taken. That's scary, right, guys? Hey. Yeah,
it's big, huge events with no backup, no explanation.
They don't intro it. It's my thing that I said a few weeks back about it's a magician that doesn't know how to focus your eyes on his trick. It's like, yeah, they're doing the trick. They did the hard part, but they didn't do the setup for it. They didn't do the whole, like, oh, I'm putting the rabbit in, you know, like they didn't do any of that. They just pulled the rabbit out of the hat, and I was looking at the ceiling fan. Like, I don't like, it just, none of this stuff feels meaningful to me. And the only stuff that really feels meaningful are, like, the character moments, and those are so inconsistent that it's hard to, like, gauge where our characters are for the most part.
So, Kyle, you said you really enjoyed this episode.
In the Nicolas Cage Fett. Fetulous Cage.
No, I know. I'm just teasing.
I can overcome so many sins if you give me, like, a tunnel scene. That's all I need.
Well, you got that in vast majority. Yeah. En masse.
Yeah, I mean, we got two separate and then combined tunnel stories. Like, that can overcome so much for me. I think I'm broken.
No, I know. Do you have any other things that you wanted to discuss?
I think I ran out of gas. I think that's about it.
Oh, I know. It's like so, like, going over every bit. I'm always like, what, did I forget anything? No, I'm pretty sure I had all of my issues were worked out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did you have something?
I was gonna say I love that Angel brought back the he had his knuckles back, the Silver Angel.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, yes. Give me more of this. Just shoot that for a long time. Just him beating Strigoi with the crosses on his hand.
I'd love for Angel to have something to do this season other than tell Gus stuff that is ignored. That would be great. If Angel had a role to do literally anything in addition to that.
Yeah.
It's super great. Yeah, with an episode like this, I always go into the podcast. We're recording like 10 minutes after the episode stopped airing. I always go into the podcast knowing that I'm going to like the episode less once I talk about it. Like, because it's like, yeah, I know, like, I have this inkling, like, okay, once we start to get into, like, the characters and story, this is all going to come crumbling down like a house of cards. You know, and it's like, that's kind of the Strain's MO. You know,
whereas
yeah.
I always have the opposite, because I always am just super disappointed in what I've watched.
Right.
And again, like, reminder to all of our listeners, Kyle has only read the first 2 books. He reads the books as the seasons happen.
Yes.
I've read all the books. That's why we started this podcast, because I'm a huge fan. So, like, I go into it, and we talk about this all the time, so I'm not going to go over it again. But I go into it, and, like, I have all these ideas of how they could keep getting better, because, like, I know that they can. and then I'm really disappointed when I watch it, and then you come and you talk to me about it. I'm like, okay, it's a little better than I thought.
Right, yeah, no, we're definitely coming in with different levels of expectations. But I feel like by the end of each podcast, we kind of even it out, so we're both sort of feeling the same thing.
Yeah,
you know?
Just a little bit numb.
I always feel worse about the episode. You always feel better about the episode. We kind of end on the same sort of lukewarm point for most Strain episodes.
Pretty much exactly. Which, as I was saying that, I'm so excited, because next season of The Strain, when we do the podcast, will be the only season where you and I have the exact same amount of knowledge.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But like, should I read book 3 after this season? Because this season definitely isn't based on any book, right?
Well, I guess we should. We have 3 episodes left, right? Or 4 episodes left?
4 episodes left.
4 episodes left. I think we have 4 episodes to figure that out. And to our listeners who have read the books and watched the TV show, please let us know if you think he should hold off until the final.
There is seriously at least a quarter of book 2 that has not been on screen yet.
That's true.
Like, for real. Like, we are at some point, like, if I had to place us, we are at some point, like, 2/3 of the way into book 2 right now, which is basically where we started the season.
It hasn't changed much.
It hasn't changed.
No, except that we've gotten a lot more Quinlan in the Ancients. I think that's the only thing we really got that's changed.
Yeah, they gave us that Abe flashback, which was in book 2. Like,
so good.
Yeah, it was really good.
Well, okay, we'll decide that later on. But if you do read the book between seasons 3 and 4, I'm going to be really excited to talk to you with all of the knowledge.
Yeah, maybe we should just make the final season like a... No, we can't make it a spoiler season, because it's going to end, I assume, the same way the book ends. Well, so we can't spoil the end of the book.
Well, I've already said on the podcast that Nora does not die the way that she...
Yeah,
like,
no,
so it can't end the same way.
Oh, okay. Well, now we're just getting into the spoilers then.
Sorry, everybody.
Well, maybe it won't. Maybe it's gonna end so far away from where the books ended that it'd be kind of fitting, like, based on how the show is gone. Like, maybe it'll end with a completely different way.
Like, it goes 3 years in the future beyond where the show ever was.
Do you think it's possible that it will end the exact same way and Dutch will just be doing Nora's role?
I actually very much think that's possible.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
I do think that they just did not like the casting of Mia Maestro. I don't think she had good chemistry.
I think she got a gig on Scandal, and they had to scramble.
Well, did she? Well, that's what I'm wondering. Did she get a gig, or did they let her go? Like,
that's true. I don't know.
Because I think that Mia Maestro and Corey Stoll just had absolutely no chemistry.
Negative chemistry.
Yeah, negative chemistry.
They actively disliked each other on screen.
Yeah, and the story was pretty reliant on them having a really good relationship.
Yeah. So does that mean that... Okay, so we could be heading down to Love Station with Fett and it's not Fett, with Dutch and F.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm starting to get more and more convinced that that's where we're headed.
Well,
that Dutch is now the new.
We've got that to look forward to. We have a moment of silence for our upcoming season.
Just mourning the just mourning our future.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Oh, man. All right. We should wrap this up before we continue.
We're just throwing ourselves a pity party now.
We are. We're just sad. Well, thank you to our listeners for listening to my horrible voice if you got to the end of the episode. You are a trooper, and I know this is grating and terrible, so thank you so much.
That's you. You're the real heroes.
Yeah.
You went down to the tunnels with us.
Yeah. So I also really want to talk about the Strain Bingo card because we didn't have any winners.
Oh, we got
because this was like an awesome episode for it to be total like a shotgun scatter shot across the bingo board.
Yeah.
Because like the things that were missing were just master things, Oxid-Illumin things, and ancient things.
Yeah, we had no Abe, Quinlan, there was nothing in this episode about the sort of the big story on the Strain. Nothing whatsoever.
No, not at all.
So there are a lot of squares that were MIA.
Yeah, so it's great that the bingo card was so scattershot because people kept being so close to getting a bingo, and they just like there was no Oxid-Illumin, and there's no Abe doing something, and there's no Quinlan doing something.
Yeah, we had one bingo that was foiled by the distinction between a dream sequence and a flashback regarding Zach's dream of his days of yore with F. And we ruled that as a dream sequence and therefore does not qualify for the flashback square, because to me a flashback is like a structural thing, like the TV structure is a flashback in, whereas that was very clearly like Zach was dreaming and they were showing us the contents of that dream.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it wasn't a flashback sequence. It wasn't the same way that like the Abe flashback to dealing with the German doctor. Like, that is clearly a flashback.
Well, and a flashback should be new content that helps enlighten something about a character.
Right.
Like, about their past. It shouldn't be going back to material that we've already seen just to remind the viewers of something.
Yeah, that's like a recap.
Yeah, exactly. There's a big difference between that stuff.
In this case, I think it was just a dream. He was having a dream. And
exactly.
So we ruled against that. That foiled our one and only bingo that could have happened.
Yes. Well, I'm going to read the ending, and unlike Kyle having read the beginning, so enjoy my terrible voice, everybody.
Brace yourselves.
This wraps up our 35th episode of the Strain Podcast. Before we go, I want to mention a few things. You can thank you, everybody, you're troopers. You can download and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. You can also hear all of our podcasts at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. Please subscribe to the show and also rate us. Follow the show on Twitter at TheStrainPod, and Kyle and I at Kyle Loves TV and at Blaire Loves TV. Remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. Send us your fan mail at thestrainpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to play #TheStrainBingo with us every week for a chance to be on the show. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.